Hey, it's Nate Flock with Pulse PEMF, and I have the honor of talking with an incredibly knowledgeable and experienced coach, trainer, and specialist, Chad Cook, founder of Players Performance Institute. Chad, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about one of my favorite subjects.
Glad to be here, Nate.
Now, Chad, your professional background is really extensive, and I was laughing earlier this week because your certifications are even more impressive. I counted over 70 certifications, including Pulse Certified. I didn't see that on your list on the website, but I know that's an extra certification. Over 70 certifications. That includes fascia work, Olympic training, youth conditioning, functional movement, and just about every other category of certification. And I've seen doctors with alphabet soup after their names, but I've never seen a list of certifications like this, which makes me even more excited to learn from you today.
It gets a little obnoxious, but it's definitely just sort of, and we'll hit on it in the story today, but definitely a hunger for knowledge and figuring out the body. So that's sort of where that laundry list of things come from.
Yes, I was thinking, man, this guy is so helpful in so many ways. You're like a Swiss Army knife of of training and conditioning. So, could you take a brief moment, maybe 60 seconds, just tell us a little bit about who you are, what your passions are, and anything that our viewers should know about you?
Absolutely. Keep it simple. The who is husband, father, business owner, entrepreneur, coach, athlete, mentor, student, servant, and military veteran. Those are sort of the who's behind me. Um, from a passion standpoint, I would say definitely sports junkie. Grew up playing just about every sport under the sun. When I had to whittle it down in high school, it was hockey, golf, and soccer. I'd probably throw hiking into the mix as I've definitely gotten a whole lot older over the years. Um, Also, even though it's probably a cliche, I would say I definitely have a passion for human performance, recovery, biomechanics, nutrition, and just how they interrelate with the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, nutritional aspects of our outcomes as athletes and as individuals. So that's sort of the gist. I'd say if I had to throw a couple more things in there, I definitely love going on road trips with my wife and watching my daughter play college soccer. Sad to say it's going to be the final year this year. She graduated in the spring, and with the lovely COVID years we had, got an extra year. So we get one more round before we call it quits.
This is so good. Well, since you're in the North Georgia area, maybe we should go hiking sometime because that is one of my absolute favorite things to do is in the North Georgia mountains.
Oh, love to. I've been blown away. My wife and I are both from Wisconsin, but we've been in Atlanta for 25 years. My daughter is 21 now and a Georgia peach, but been blown away with the beauty of the North Georgia mountains and absolutely love it up there.
It is. It is absolutely breathtaking. And also, thank you for your service in the Air Force. I know that was one of the things that you had mentioned specifically on your website. And my dad was in the Air Force as well. So I know what a
Nice.
sacrifice it is for family and friends. So thank you for your service to America.
Absolutely. And likewise to your family.
Thank you. Now, you've already mentioned passion in particular to learn, to grow. I love that you included that you're a student in the list of things that you are because you are a very effective and knowledgeable coach and trainer, and yet you're still considering yourself a student. That says a lot about you. Since you're a specialist in many areas, there has to be a backstory, right? So, what led you into coaching, training, and exercise science? Is there like a why behind your current profession?
Yeah, the why is pretty easy for me. Definitely changed the path in my life in a big way. Um, and probably not that uncommon to a lot of people in the health and performance world, but I had a career-ending hockey injury when I was playing junior A hockey.
Mm.
Um, and basically, that was my lifelong dream up to that point, and planned on taking it from junior A's to Power Five college hockey to professional, and didn't really think about anything else besides that until it got yanked away. And with that, I always say things happen for a reason. But with that reason, I didn't really understand it at the time, but it definitely put a burning fire in my belly. to understand, were there things I could have been doing prior to that injury that may have helped mitigate it? Were there things I could have done post that injury that would have helped me rehab and still not miss my window to play at the levels that I wanted to play at? So those sort of really helped me sort of figure out what that next direction needed to be. And the Air Force was my window of time to regroup, get some great experiences, some life skills, some technical knowledge, and a way to pay for school for me to go down that next path. So it was a godsend for me to be able to have that opportunity in a time where I didn't think I had any opportunities left.
Right.
And then from that just sort of create that burning desire for me to have a passion and a hunger around performance, recovery, how the body works, and try to marry my passions to my career path and a business. And that's sort of how that came about for Players Performance Institute. We're getting probably close to 20 years of the company now.
Wow. Wow. So in that pursuit of trying to understand, could this have been mitigated? Could I have been able to jump back in if I had known what I know now? Was that process frustrating when you came to some of those realizations and learned more about the body and recovery and things like that? Was that a frustrating thing? Like, if only I had known, things would be different? Or were you able to come to peace with the fact that it was done, but now you can help others get past those thresholds and those blocks?
It was tough the first few years. Like I said, when you put all the blood, sweat, and tears, and it's literally the only thing you think you're doing, which was probably a little naive on my part at the time. Now that I understand the percentages and all the different variables that go into someone actually getting to play at the highest levels. But what I would say is I settled into it, and it definitely gave me a hunger to go after something new and different, but sort of marry it in that same lane. So no regrets whatsoever. I love serving the athletes I get to serve, and I've gotten to, from my youngest junior to my oldest 80-year-olds, and then the professionals and college players in between. They're puzzles, and I just love trying to work on those puzzles.
You're kind of functioning as a detective, right? Because every person's different, every body's different with genetics and everything to take in consideration. And it's so cool how you're working with youth, you're working with NFL players and professional athletes, and then people in their later decades of life. So you're offering really many services as a strength, performance, and conditioning specialist. Makes sense with over 70 certifications. There's a lot that you can offer someone, but let's zero in on PEMF for a moment. And could you give
Mm-hmm.
some examples of when you would look at a client's situation and their goals and then say, this is definitely a job for Pulse PEMF?
That's a great question, Nate. Honestly, the ability to make an impact at the cellular level, to exercise, recharge, detox the cells throughout the body, um, and all the related benefits. There's hardly an athlete or a situation where I don't think Pulse is part of the toolbox to help us um, get them to the next level or come back from whatever they were coming back from. And we'll get into that more, but that was definitely, um, since teaming up with Pulse, it's definitely a heavy hitter in my toolbox. If I'm trying to get a little more specific, the wins would be if I'm seeing an athlete that's having poor sleep, if I'm having someone that's having performance degradations, recovery delays, low energy, communication breakdowns post surgery, with them reconnecting things, inflammation, whether it's local, systemic, gut, head. I mean, inflammation's inflammation. Just how you get at it is the uniqueness of being able to operate at the cellular level. Means we get to go in a lot of places other tools don't get to go.
It's very true.
Um, and then I also think it's can be very helpful with immune deficiencies, cognitive degradations, brain fog, lack of focus, things like that. I'm not saying we're diagnosing and treating all the different
Right.
conditions related to those. But from a cellular health standpoint and all the other things in between, it definitely uh, has played some pretty interesting and fun um, benefits in those pieces.
Very well said. Yes, it is more like a supplement than a diagnostic tool. And the benefits you've already mentioned some of these. The benefits and the end results of PEMF therapy, they're pretty extensive in scope, kind of like your certification list.
Mhm.
From even diminishing pain, decreasing inflammation, nutrient intake, cellular communication, boosting energy, things like that, recovery. But could you share from your experience what PEMF does on a cellular level, specifically for the biomechanics of the body, since that is one of your specialties?
Absolutely. Um, and again, when you get down to the cell level, there's just so many benefits. But I'd say at the cellular level, the PMF is exercising the cells, recharging the cells. So um, one interesting factoid that I found fascinating as I was starting to dig into Pulse is just um, that our body likes to operate at about 20 to 25 millivolts on a cellular level. So when we have inflammation, aging, injuries, things like that, um, that 20 to 25 starts to drop. And that's when we get more inflammation. We can start, and inflammation is the precursor to just about every issue we have with our bodies. So if we can address it early and often with that, I feel like it sort of heads off a lot of the other issues we might be fighting um, weeks, months, years down the road. Um, so from that standpoint, it definitely at the cellular level makes a big impact. What I would say is outside of just that, the 25 millivolts, what I didn't know early on was that for us, once those cells degrade and drop down below that, we've got to get them up to about 50 millivolts for them to settle back into their normal operating range of 20 to 25. And that's where the Pulse PMF system, I think, sort of blows a lot of the other competition out of the water. And it's powerful, but it's precise. And it allows us to sort of get at that higher recharging level so they can stabilize and get back to that normal range again for optimal performance and health. Um, I would say also at that cellular level, it's allowing that exercise is allowing us to open up the channels and detoxify. And with that detoxification, we're also getting that, we're helping with that, increasing that nutrient intake. So you're getting a whole bunch of benefits from that standpoint as well. And then enhancing the quality of the cells for cellular turnover. What I mean by that is we're always turning our cells over, whether it's on a daily basis or yearly basis. Just about everything in our body um, has a turnover on its cells. And from my simplistic view, what I like to look at is if my cells are getting turned over, I want to make sure they're getting turned over by the absolute most healthy cells available, not by a bunch that have been lowered and
Come on.
diseased or degenerated and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of my big things I always try to emphasize with my athletes is, hey, besides the acute and chronic and other benefits that we can get in the short and midterm, lifelong anti-aging and all this other stuff, I just want my cells as healthy as possible for everything that I do. And I want my athletes to have that same viewpoint.
So good, Chad. Wow. So without divulging any of your secret sauce, because I know it's you got to keep some things secret. It's part of your business. Can you share how you specifically pair PEMF with MAT, which is one of the things that you're certified in just about every area?
Happy to. Before I do, I'd probably just like to take a step back for a second and say I like to look at athletes on a continuum, actually a multitude of continuums, and that'll sort of emphasize how I like to pair. Um,
Hmm.
so when I'm looking at an athlete when they're coming in for the first time or their 150th time, um, I'm always looking at that continuum of where do they fall in that spectrum, and that spectrum from where are they as a whole and where are their individual parts and where are there linkages between those parts to make it back up to that whole. So that's one continuum I like to look at. Another one I like to look at is where on that spectrum they fall as a whole and also their individual parts when we're talking about injuries and surgeries. And are they in a pre-surgery, a post-surgery, are they in a rehab? Are they trying to work on recovery, performance? Those are all going to play factors in how we want to pair PMF with MATRX or any of the other approaches that we like to pair PMF with. So from that standpoint, as far as MAT goes, once we've got that continuum, then I like to look at the pairing from a few different viewpoints. A lot of times I might use the PMF as a pre-activity. So say I'm working on a shoulder or an ankle, and there's a bunch of inflammation or there's some pain points just from a rough day of practice. I want to calm that system down. I want to get the blood flow going well. I want to get those cells exercised and feeling good and energized, so that I'm not just spending the first 15, 20 minutes breaking through neurological barriers and other barriers just to get to the real work that I want to have done. So I'll use it from a pre-standpoint. After I'm done, maybe I'm going after some things with tissue or something else, and I might want to do some post work to help with recovery and maybe down regulating that inflammation once I've been in there aggressive and working on some things. And then one of the favorite ways I like to pair it is what I like to call stacking. And with the stacking, what I like to do is I like to say, okay, if I've got an athlete for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, I want to maximize the outcomes while I'm minimizing the time that athlete needs with me, especially the pro athletes. Their schedules are so scheduled and full and intense with their teams that I need to be really smart and efficient with the time. So a lot of times I'm going to stack, and if I'm doing MAT in one area, say I'm working on a lower leg and foot, and I know there's something going on in the elbow or the shoulder or the back, I may have them passively on PMF on the bed or paddles or something, starting to get some great effects on inflammation, down regulating any pain signals, things like that, and just getting good nutrient and blood flow in the area while I'm working on a completely different area. And then I might swap a quarter or a halfway through and reverse that. And by doing that, what I'm trying to do is I'm saying, okay, if I had that hour, can I get 2, 3, 4 hours worth of efficient, productive work that's having synergies with each other, and not just doing more to do more, but doing more to get a greater outcome in a shorter amount of time? That's how I like to stack them together. And with the PMF, it's so versatile. The other thing I like to do is I may just stack their whole body on it while I'm doing 2 or 3 other things on their body, just because it's getting through all tissue and ligaments and tendons and bones and organs and brain matter. So there's just so many side benefits we can tap into while I'm working on something else.
It really is kind of a dream modality for body work and fascia work, because you can do multiple things at once. You can stack those. And I'm really glad you brought up the fact that this is an effective, if I can use the term pre-workout, it's the proven effects of the recovery are hands down the best of the best. I mean, I've never experienced the recovery that I get like with Pulse PMF, but on a pre-workout standpoint, like to energize before doing work, to get the communication of all the systems, I think that's a brilliant strategy. And you really seem to have this down to like methodical. You really have a strategy, and I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned the time issue. Like when you're working with athletes that are busy on their schedule and their teams, the demands that are going there, you've got this short window to do something miraculous and amazing. And so the fact that you're trusting Pulse PEMF to be a part of your story and part of that, we definitely appreciate and value that we get to be in the corner with you. Is there any other modality though that you like pairing with Pulse PEMF in particular?
Several. What I would say is, with all the benefits of getting at that cellular level, I pretty much use it with just about all my other approaches. Outside of where there's certain tools and technologies I use where I have to have a certain flow through the body.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, I've got pulse stacking with just about all my other modalities. A couple of examples would be if I'm trying to work on some lengthening and strengthening and neurological work, I like to use interactive neuromuscular stimulation, INS for short. It's been another effective tool in my tool belt, and those two stack really well together, play nicely together, and I may have them on separate regions of the body and then integrate them back together as the session goes on. And then if I'm working on more fascia related and trying to get thermal effects versus electromagnetic versus electrical or any of the other modality principles out there, I like to use the Pulse PEMF with radio frequency therapy and laser therapy if I'm trying to go after light therapies and thermal therapies to get tissue extensibility and tissue health regeneration. That stacks well with those as well. So all kinds of different ways to use it.
Oh, hey, are you enjoying this video? Well, then be sure to subscribe to our channel for the latest information on Pulse PEMF and tips on how to live the optimized life. Leave a question or a comment below. Our team reads and responds to each one. And be sure to take a couple seconds, click that like button below. It helps this channel get good news to more people. Now, back to the video, and I'm gonna get back to recharging my cells. Man, Chad, I would love to come and watch you just work with a pulse machine. That would just be so fun to just see all the different ways that you use it in conjunction with all of your specialties and certifications. I know you've invested quite a bit of time to get to this point where it is methodical. You have a strategy. You have the questions you're asking yourself beforehand. So can you share some of the stories about incredible results that you've achieved in all of those hours as you're becoming more inept to work with the machine, the technology, and how to angle the accessories, what settings to use on the Pulse XO Pro, all of those things. That's a lot of time that you've invested. So there's got to be some good stories in there.
Absolutely. And the stories always start out with me being the guinea pig. And then
yeah.
my wife and daughter, especially my daughter when she was younger, being an athlete herself, and especially at the younger ages, it's just pure, honest feedback.
Come on.
And any modality, any technology, anything that we use, I'm going to prove it out on myself, and then I'm going to prove it out on them so that I get that honest, brutal feedback and know what's going on versus just asking a client that may not want to hurt my feelings. And if I'm being specific on the examples, I'd say one of my first aha moments for me was after I did the research and studied up on it and saw that it made sense with what I wanted to do, personally for myself for the rest of my life, but also with my athletes, was as a family man, as a small business owner that's got a lot of passion around solving puzzles, my brain likes to spin in the middle of the night. And for the last 25 years, I wake up very early, and a lot of times won't go back to sleep. So when I started studying up on the pulse, just some of the things that you can do to help with sleep patterns, I ran some of the protocols and tests on myself, and literally the first time I ran it was the first time I slept through the night in about 20 plus years.
Wow.
And my wife's like, no way, that's placebo, this and that. And I kept running the tests, and I wouldn't say they were all as great as that first night, but they all continually accumulated and got better and better. And when I use it for sleep, my sleep improves. So that would be a personal one.
And that's the big deal because sleep is so important. That is a huge deal.
Oh yeah. I don't care how good your recovery strategies are. If you're not sleeping well, you're impacting your recovery and you're impacting your performance. I would say another interesting story that I wasn't expecting at all was my daughter, Kendall. When we had the beautiful outbreak of COVID and she was in her first year of college soccer, she got a bad case of COVID and had to come home for a few weeks. And when she did, I was getting her on the system. And before I got her on the system, she was starting to feel better. And we were using it for just trying to re-energize her. But then she started to feel better fast. And I said, now don't go out and run hard yet. Your lungs, everything have been taking a hit. And being a 18-year-old, she decided to go push her run hard and strained some of the muscles, intercostals, and just stressed her lungs a lot based on trying to come back from that a little too early. And long story short, she got a little nervous because it really impacted her breathing and other things on if she was ever going to play again. And we just, not that I was trying to diagnose or treat, but we just said, okay, we're going to get the cells healthier and see what happens. And we did some settings specific for organs, and then we did some settings specific for the muscles around the intercostals. And as we did that with some breathing exercises, her turnaround happened very quickly, and she got back to school and started playing again regularly, and all was behind her. So that was a fun little outlier story where had no intention of doing anything related to COVID, no intention related to organs, and just tested it out and got some pretty darn good results.
Wow. Wow.
And then more the typical ones I would see with my athletes is I've had some boxers, some golfers, baseball players, football throwing athletes, punching athletes that sought me out after shoulder injuries and shoulder surgeries that had a bit of frozen shoulders. And before even getting to work on a few of them, I just tested out, okay, let's throw the paddles on them. Let's do a couple different settings with them just to warm things up so I can see what the shoulder's really doing. And just by doing that for several athletes, we started to see less pain, better range of motion, a lot of that freezing go away before I even got to what I would have considered my real work with my hands and with the other strategies that I use. So seeing that over and over again, whether it's shoulders, ankles, knees, you name it, we've seen a lot of those similar type of outcomes.
When I saw your list of certifications and I saw golf certification, I was wondering if you had been working with many golfers to help with range of motion, because I've seen so many shoulders and so much range of motion get helped with Pulse PEMF. Are there like a series of golfers that you see on a regular basis, or I'm assuming if one gets a breakthrough, the word's going to spread at the golf club, right? So
No doubt about it when you're talking golfers, but
yep.
ironically enough, when I first started Players Performance Institute, my three passions growing up were golf, hockey, and soccer. Well, I figured hockey probably wasn't going to be a big one in the Atlanta area, although it is growing now. So when I first opened up Players Performance Institute, I was probably 98% golfers. I just wanted it to be my passion. I wanted to tie it in with the type of athletes I was working with.
Wow.
But then over the years, with some of the great mentors I had, some of the skill sets that I was building, the biomechanics I was understanding, it started to morph out into a lot of other throwing athletes, kicking athletes, and then just kept growing from there to working with NFLers and MLBs and professional boxers and other ones. But yeah, I'd say for the first decade, I was probably 98% golfers.
Wow. As it always baffles me that we don't see more Pulse PEMF machines at golf clubs. Like, it just makes sense. It would be the perfect thing to 15 minutes on a whole body accessory, or paddles over the shoulder before you go hit 18 holes like that. It makes sense to me. You've alluded to this multiple times so far in this conversation, but you obviously have to practice on yourself all the time, right? So what is a pulsing routine that you have for yourself, and maybe daily or weekly?
That's a great one, and I feel there is no better teacher than practice. Um, so you guys provide great documentation, great training options. But once you get that baseline and that core foundation, it's just a matter of how do we marry the science with the art of being a coach, practitioner? And that's where I start to try to become the mad scientist and just say, okay, well, if it works for this, how can
Yes.
we tweak that to make it work for this? And with that, what I've done is, again, it's great with the acute and the chronic stuff, but it definitely comes back to lifelong health and cellular health for me. And so I try to do it daily.
Come
I
on.
try to spend close to an hour a day, um, 3 hours minimum a week. I feel like is sort of the gold standard for me. Um, but what I try to do is, as much as I've done it, I try to focus on the big rocks. Um, where are we getting the most receptors in our body? Well, that's your spinal column, your gut, and your head. So I've got a little flow that I like to do with different frequencies for the head, different frequencies for the spine, and then the gut. Um, and just that's where a lot of our inflammation comes from. That's where a lot of our communication across our body comes from. So unless I've got something ailing me from working on a bunch of big body NFL players, I'm just focusing on that flow of getting my head, my back line through my spine, and then my gut.
So brilliant. Is there a favorite accessory or position when you're doing that specifically for yourself? I know when it comes to clients, you have to just meet them where their needs are. But when you're pulsing yourself, is there one that you gravitate more towards, or a position or a accessory that you use more often?
For position, I definitely love the contour bed. Little anti-gravity, takes some pressure off your back. I'm on my feet all day, lifting, working with athletes. I'm on the go all the time. So it's a time in my day where I work on my breathing, a little meditation, maybe a little reading, or I just relax and just, it's my chill out time for the day. So the contour bed is a big part of it. Plus, I can energize the whole body through the bed. So I'm just getting that full body cellular regeneration. And then I'll usually complement that with the big pad. The big pad lets me hit on those two big rocks pretty quickly. And then the paddles for my head. Love the paddles for a lot of my athletes. Um, you can stack or you can pull through the body with the pads. So I use that one a lot with my athletes as well. It's comfortable, it feels good. I
Hmm.
can go unilateral or bilateral, so there's a lot of different options with that one.
When I ask that question, paddles tends to get a lot of love, but I'm so glad you
Mm-hmm.
said the contour total body bed because that is my favorite.
Yep.
I end my day with that, and my body now expects it and yearns for it. So like sometimes going on vacation is a little bit harder because how are you going to pack the contour total body bed and XL Pro in the car? But I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Now, is that something that you do like as a start to your day or in the middle of the day, or is that an end of the day thing?
I've used it in all honestly, when I'm sun up to sundown at the facility, it's whenever I get a break. Otherwise, I like to do it in the morning and in the evenings. The morning is great for just sort of getting my mind fresh for the day. Uh, but I also love the paddles at night for sleeping.
Mm.
Um, uh, but even I've even used it in the early to mid afternoon if I've got a little quick break in the athletes and I'm sort of got a food coma from my lunch. Um, it'll be a great way to just sort of get a recharge and feel fresh for the rest of the day to finish off with the athletes.
It's so true.
So, so I didn't give you a great answer there because I use it throughout the day wherever I
No,
can.
no, that is a great answer. That's perfect. It's because it's the a Swiss Army knife of wellness, right? Like it's good in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, it's good in the afternoon, it's good in the evening. Now, as a seasoned trainer and a coach and a specialist, what would you say to the aspiring athletes that about incorporating Pulse PEMF into their training and their recovering program? Because obviously, there's so many modalities out there. There's so many certifications and techniques, and most of them are valid. So, what would you say to one in particular about incorporating Pulse PEMF into a regular training and recovery program?
Well, I've mentioned it before, but when you can get to the cellular level, which is pretty unique with Pulse, that just allows us to get a global hit on the body that not many modalities can even touch. Um, and I always like to, and also when you get those cells healthy, you're taking that proactive approach versus reactive on the body and aches and pains and aging and everything else. So I'm a big quote guy. I'm going to steal one from Benjamin Franklin, and I always tell my athletes an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Um,
Oh, say that again.
so
That was good. That needs to be said
an,
again.
an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Wow.
So if we can keep those cells healthy, if we can keep that inflammation down, we're fighting off so many things that make my work a lot harder if I have to deal after the fact instead of knowing that. And when you're dealing with athletes, it's not like I'm saying it. You can't say things are truly preventative because you're an NFL player, you're going to get hurt at some point. No matter how much we put the armor on and protect you. But I like to mitigate it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to make sure that we're doing everything we can so you bounce back faster. And if you do incur that injury or that tweak, it's a fraction of what it might have been if you weren't doing all the things to be proactive.
Very well said. Yeah, it's been underrated, I think, as far as recovery is concerned in the last 15, 20 years. But men like you are proving that this is such a necessary modality, especially as we're seeing the generations becoming a little more cautious about the type of treatments and doctors that they see. People are really starting to study more about their own physical bodies. And so we're in a very exciting time, I think, on the earth right now, because we've got all these discoveries coming forth and people are becoming more aware that they need to own their own health journey. They need to take responsibility. It's not their doctor's responsibility to do everything for them. And PEMF adds that element where you can use it at home. You can go see a specialist for it. But as we're watching the generations develop and evolve in this, I'm sure you've got your eyes set on some things for the future. Are you dreaming any things up? Or are you going to keep it the way it is, Players Performance Institute? Are you going to expand or evolve in any way? Are you opening up new avenues? Tell us some of your dreams for the future.
Absolutely. And you hit on a key point for me to answer your question. Um, I I pose the same statement to all my athletes, and I pose that same statement to me is to challenge yourself to be a fraction better every day. So with PPI, with my own self, we're evolving, we're changing, we're growing, we're learning. We're always trying to uh, see where are those leading edge breaking principles, strategies, techniques, technologies that help us take performance, recovery, human movement to that next level. So I feel like we've got some great tools in our tool belt, but I also am always researching and trying to develop different ways to continue to push that envelope, be more efficient, more effective, faster outcomes, better outcomes, so that athletes can reach their true potential.
Yes. Yeah. Chad, you are changing lives. You're doing incredible work. And we are thrilled that we get to be in your office and part of the story and another tool in your tool belt. So thank you for bringing Pulse PEMF along with this. How can our viewers learn more about you and the Players Performance Institute?
Probably the easiest way is just our website can point them to all the different ways to contact us. So it's playerspi.com. That's definitely the easiest. It says tags to our social media, stuff like that, but that's a good uh, direct link for anyone that wants to gather more information. There's plenty to read out there and do a little investigation to sort of see what our company's about, some of our principles, strategies, techniques, technologies that we like to use, and how we go about doing that.
I definitely want to come visit and see what you're
Absolutely.
doing. That's very exciting. Thank you so much, Chad, for your time. We really appreciate you and all the work you're doing for the wellness industry and for athletes around the Atlanta area and abroad. So thank you.
And thank you, Nate. Pulse PMF's been a huge tool in my toolbox, and your team's just been very forward thinking on the product development side, but also on pushing the envelope to say, how can we apply this in different ways? So you guys have been a great arm to lean on.
That is so great to hear. And we have more accessories and things coming down the docket that are very exciting. So you're going to get even more tools for your athletes very soon. And for all of
Excellent.
our viewers, thank you for watching and being a part of the Pulse PEMF journey. Remember, you can empower your own wellness by keeping on pulsing. So you can join us next time and go to pulsepemf.com to stay connected with us, playerspi.com to stay connected and see what Chad Cook is cooking up in his kitchen. And we thank you for being a part of this journey. Thanks for watching this video by Pulse PEMF. For more information about us or to schedule a personalized demo with our technology, just click the link in the description below. Also, be sure to follow us on social media, especially YouTube, for inspiring stories, cutting-edge wellness tips, and exciting industry updates that will enhance your life.